I'm a bit freaking paranoid about birds now.
Need some help over here!
Down!
2 identical deaths on 2 different continents.
It's smart, it's relentless, and it knows you're onto it.
I'm way up close.
There's a connection between all these things. I just can't see it yet.
So, Praxeus, episode 6 of series 12 of Doctor Who. Written by Pete McTeer and Chris Chibnall. Pete McTeer, of course, wrote Kablam last year, which seemed to be a favourite amongst Doctor Who viewers. A lot of people seem to really like that. I wasn't massively keen on it last year. I liked the kind of ending, but the first 3/4 weren't that great, I thought, in my opinion. So a lot of people were happy that he was back and to see what he brought to the table this time. So I'm going to give a quick non-spoiler review, just my general thoughts on the episode, and then we'll go into some more spoilers. So, non-spoilery, I thought this was quite a good, exciting episode. There were lots of fast-paced moments. What they did do quite well, I think, is split up the TARDIS team. This is proving a reoccurring thing this year, and it's had mixed results, but I think on the whole it's quite good that they're splitting up. You're getting a chance to focus on characters in different settings and away from the group dynamic, which I think is working really well. It does feel like a little bit, and we'll get to this in the spoiler section a bit more, but Pete McTeer is kind of retracing some old steps from Kablam, just 1 or 2. We'll talk about that in a minute. So in a way it feels slightly less original, but it's still a really good story and a really good pace. It also has a message. It has, something it wants to say, which is always good for a story. A story should have some kind of something it wants to say about the world, about people, about something. And this episode has that in the form of plastic pollution, but it does it in a lot better way than Orphan 55 did it. I think it sort of does it integrates it into the plot a bit more. I think with Orphan 55, the message sometimes, at some points, especially at the very end of the episode, overtook the plot a bit. I think this keeps the balance right in the sense that the plot is first, and it's an exciting, dramatic plot, and then sort of tying into it and supporting it is the message. But yeah, it was a good episode with some really tense moments, some exciting moments, some jump scare moments. It had a bit of everything, and I quite liked that. It had some sort of trying to solve the mystery moments. We got some quite good stuff. The supporting cast, I would say, is a mixed bag. There were some really good, nice stories in there, and some complete story arcs, and then there were some less ones that didn't quite work so well. Gabriella, I don't think worked quite as well. She kind of, despite being in and following the team and being there for most of the episode, she kind of just felt like background, and it didn't feel like she needed to be there. Whereas the astronauts, Adam and Jake, they kind of felt like they had their own narrative arc throughout the whole thing, and it paid off at the end, and so they worked really well. Whereas Gabriella just kind of felt a bit like she was just background, there to say a few lines, and yeah, I'll have more to say on her in the spoiler section, which we will start now. I did like the worldwide scope of this episode, starting off in Peru, Madagascar, all of those places. I think Doctor Who's been doing this a lot recently, ever since Resolution, and I think it works to create a threat level that feels like it could impact the whole world and not just Britain. It's a good way of doing it. However, I was a little worried when it started, because I was thinking, okay, they're going to have to deal with at least 3 locations, things going on in 3 locations. You've only got 50 minutes. Is this going to feel like there's too much crammed into such a small space? And are we not going to get, enough from even our main characters, let alone all these quite a few supporting characters they're introducing? Are we going to feel like some of them have been, left by the wayside in this episode? And I think it's a bit of a mixed bag in that sense. As I alluded to earlier, we've got some great stuff from supporting characters like Adam and Jake, who had this story arc ranging from Jake sort of being dismissed from the police service and how that ties into his relationship and how he feels about himself, and then the sort of acceptance he finds at the end, and stepping up to the plate and realizing that he is worth as much as his husband. And that's a really nice little arc they've got there for those two, and it worked really well, and it led to a great payoff at the end there with the almost sacrifice that he was willing to make to save everybody else. It was so that was a good sort of supporting character. However, as I said earlier, Gabriella just didn't quite feel like she was a full-rounded character to me. She at the very opening of the episode seemed fine up until basically she starts hanging around with the TARDIS team, and I think it started to go. I started to notice it around a bit where her friend, her vlogging partner, whoever she was to her, exploded, and the reaction from her didn't seem quite genuine. Like I expected more of a reaction from her. Someone who, she's at least her best friend, travels the world with, makes vlogs with, and just there wasn't much of a reaction there. So I think Gabriella didn't quite get the development, and she suffered from all these characters being introduced. What was with her expecting everyone to know who she was? I mean, she's just a travel vlogger. I mean, I'm pretty sure even PewDiePie doesn't have everyone know who he is if they see him on site. There'd be quite a large amount of the population that if they met PewDiePie wouldn't know who he was. And to be honest, I probably would, like, if you said the name to me, I'd recognize him. After he said his name, I'd be like, oh yeah. But I mean, quite a lot of people aren't going to recognize him, and he has the most subscribers of any YouTube channel. So why would some travel blogger expect everyone to know her? I do not know. And then we have Suki, who is sort of the other main supporting character in this episode. And this is where it comes in, where I'm saying Pete McTeer is kind of repeating himself here, because in Kablam we had Charlie, who was of course seemingly teamed up with the Doctor to try and solve the mystery of what was going wrong with the robots, and it turned out he was the one causing it. And here again you've got someone who teams up with the Doctor and her friends in terms of solving this, and it turns out she's partly responsible for it. So it was definitely a good it worked for the episode, I think, but it does feel like Pete Matier's just kind of going back on old material. It'd be interesting to see if he writes another episode, if we get a similar sort of character again, if this is maybe just his go-to sort of thing he does. If it is, it'll become predictable quite quickly. But in this episode, I wasn't expecting it, and it did kind of work. I liked because up until the point where it was revealed she was a villain, I was kind of thinking she was along the similar lines of Gabriella. She was in the background, didn't really have much of an emotional connection to her, wasn't much going on. But then we got the reveal about the fact that she was an alien, the fact that she was the scientist behind what was going on to a degree, and we gradually got more and more information about that. And basically she's the villain of the episode. But what I liked about it was that she wasn't a black and white villain. She wasn't evil. She was someone who had done some evil things out of desperation. Done some, very questionable things. Evil, like sacrificing a whole planet's worth of people just to try and find a cure for her race. That's evil, but she was driven to it by desperation rather than being an evil person naturally, if you see what I mean. So it made for a much more interesting character. And I did feel like it was a bit cut short, us exploring that, because pretty much as soon as we got that information, the infection spread and she exploded. So would have been nice to maybe have a bit more of that. Splitting up the team also did really work for the companions, I think. In every episode we get someone who ends up not quite getting as much to do out of the companions, and I think this time it was kind of Rhino, though he had little bits to do. There wasn't much of a story for him this episode, whereas there definitely was for Yaz and even for Graham a little bit, but mostly Yaz, which is great because we're really needed, as we know from series 11. Yaz was kind of left behind, and we got a little bit from the first episode of Spyfall, but she hasn't really had that much since that we can really grasp onto. But there was a lot of really nice stuff in this episode. When she took charge and was like, no, I'm going back into the warehouse to investigate in Hong Kong, that was great stuff. Her, taking charge, you actually felt like she was a law enforcement officer at that point. No, I'm going to go back and investigate. So that was really good. And then I love the moment a bit later on where the Doctor arrives in the base thing that's been created out of plastic under the sea, and reveals that it's a base under the sea and not an alien planet, and just her reaction to that, the kind of annoyed defeatedness of it, the annoyed frustration that she had in that she wanted to have discovered an alien planet by herself, and I wonder if that was possibly partly Chris Chibnall's contribution to this, because after last week's exciting major revelations with a Chris Chibnall co-written episode that tied heavily into the plot arcs, a lot of people were speculating we might get something more like that this episode as well. We might get some things that really tie into the Timeless Child and all that sort of thing. We didn't get that. So it's curious why Chris Chibnall's name is attached. What did he add? Why did he need to be a co-writer on this? And that, that happens in TV. If the script editor ends up rewriting a lot of the script, they'll get a co-writer credit. But often it's planned that way because they need to add some story elements that they're planning on paying off later on. And I wonder if this is one of them. Could it be that Yaz is starting to get a bit dissatisfied with her life on the TARDIS? Unfulfilled, maybe? She wants to be doing more. And we saw this back when she was in her police work, doing in The Woman That Fell to Earth, when she was just being assigned to domestic disputes and things like that. She was like, no, I can do more than this. I want to do more than this. It was a character thread that was not really picked up in Series 11. But I wonder if it's being picked up now, and that kind of constant drive to, no, I want to be doing more, I want to be achieving more, is even present in the TARDIS team. And she wanted to be the one that had discovered an alien planet all by herself. And the frustration that we see when she didn't get that, and her little comment, could be playing into a wider story arc. Maybe that story arc we've been hinted at by Chibnall is present for her this season. Maybe that's it. And it might end up with her leaving the TARDIS team. It might end up with her maybe sacrificing herself because she wants to take that step and she can do that type thing. Or maybe she'll leave the TARDIS team and not go back to Earth, but go... and one theory I had was that she might go join some kind of intergalactic police force. Not the Jadoon, something else. And that's how she'll aim to keep progressing and fulfill what she thinks is her sort of not destiny's the wrong word, but that kind of thing. Her potential, that's the word I meant, her potential. So some really nice stuff from Yaz. And Graham had a lovely moment too, when he's sitting down talking with Jake about his relationship with Jake's husband, and Jake is talking about how tough it is to live up to someone who has such an amazing job and who has such an amazing person. How can you have a relationship with someone who's so amazing? And just Graham doesn't even say anything. Just the look on his face and the way the camera is framed and everything in that moment, in that scene, you can just see on his face he's thinking, yeah, I do know that was me and Grace, because his opinion of Grace was so much higher than his opinion of himself, and he did live with her, and that was a relationship that really worked, and he really respected her. She helped treat cancer patients, and just that moment and that look on his face, that sort of sad, absolutely brilliant acting from Bradley Walsh there. There's a couple of little plot things which are kind of having the negative column here. Just that a couple of things that didn't make sense to me. As soon as the scale thing started to happen and the guy exploded on the beach with the Doctor, admittedly they don't know it's a pathogen at this point, but still, I would be worried about contagion and infection, and yet that never comes up. No one in the whole episode is worried at all that they might get infected by breathing in the dust that's been exploded, or just even touching them. And the way Ryan handles the bird, he he says don't touch it to Gabriella in Peru, but then once he got it on the workbench, he's unfolding the thing it's wrapped in, and doesn't seem that worried about maybe there being something airborne, or even if he touches it. It just didn't seem like they were that worried about contagion, and especially once they found out it's a pathogen, you'd think they would be. They'd think they'd be worried about getting infected themselves. And, all it would have taken was one line from them asking the doctor scans something with a sonic and goes, no, don't worry, it's safe to be near. It's only if we get scratched by these birds. And that would have solved the issue. But I spent most of the episode going, why are you touching that? Why are you going near that person that's got these scales on them? Do some kind of quarantine here. So that was a little bit annoying, because it distracted me the whole time, wondering why they weren't worried about this. So overall, I think it was a really strong episode. Away from all the big story arc stuff that we had last week, we just had a really exciting adventure with some good supporting characters, and some less good supporting characters. But, overall, I just kind of wondered why she was there, Gabriella, rather than it being a major hangback for the episode. It didn't kind of distract. It didn't feel like it was distracting from any of the others, so it wasn't too bad. And yeah, there was some lovely Hitchcockian vibes from the birds. Of course, if you've seen the classic Hitchcock film, The Birds, that was good. There were some jump scares in there when Gabriella's friend eyes opened and she was white-eyed. That was interesting. And yeah, the message, what the thing that what episode wanted to talk about was there. It was present throughout most of the episode. We got the point. The plastic microbeads being in us. That's why the aliens are attracted to us. It was all, hey, shout out from about the Autons there as well. Nice little continuity reference. And it was weaved into the episode in a really strong way, and you didn't feel like it was, taking precedent over the plot. It was part of the plot. And in a similar way to, I think, Oxygen from a couple of years ago, from series 10, that worked really well for the same reason. It had something to say, and it weaved it really well into the plot, and this does it too. So that's my thoughts anyway. What do you think of Praxeus? Did you enjoy the episode? What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? Let me know in the comments below. And thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit like, share, subscribe, hit that bell, all that jazz. And I will see you next week for another review. I'm also at the moment reviewing Star Trek Picard every week. Usually my reviews come out on a Friday, if I can get them out quick enough, which is the same day it's released in the UK. So if you're interested in Star Trek at all, check out my Picard reviews as well. And I will see you next week. Bye.